Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions. So if you would let's look at these, and I would love for you to pick, and Teresa's already volunteered, though she didn't realize she volunteered to kick us off. But I'd love for you to share either number two, and I'd love everyone to share at least one. So share a book you've recently read or a training conference that you've attended. Would you recommend it? What did you like? What didn't you like? Okay, so that one's pretty easy. Softball. Doesn't have to be a improvement or a leadership or a business type book, but it could be. And it doesn't necessarily. I'd just love to hear what is piquing the interest of all of you. The other question, the second question would be, describe a time where you tried out an improvement tool or methodology that either worked really well or that failed miserably. I'd love for you to tell us why it went so well or why it failed so bad. Okay. Sometimes the failures are more fun to hear. So if there's one that really failed, I'd love to hear that. And then the last one, what aspect of improvement do you see as your strength? And would you be willing to teach us some keys to your success? And like what Judy did the last meeting, you shared with us. And it doesn't have to be some very complex tool or method. It could be something that is very simple, but maybe it's something you've really relied on, you do really well, you really like it. Love for you to share that. So, and that one could be like a bonus you could just add. So Teresa, take us away. Go ahead and kick us off, and then I'd love to hear from others.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I am going to do the improvement tool that didn't work, but I did just want to say that recently I'm rereading a book, the Checklist Manifesto, because I'm rereading that because I'm doing some HRO improvement with radiation oncology, and that book just really speaks to what we're looking at. The failure. So we do in situ simulation with a complete surgical team, and we have very little time to do it. So and we've been doing it for like 6-7 years now. And we used to, I bring clipboards, I'd bring a dozen clipboards, and at the end, everyone would fill out the post survey. And it took time again, because once it's over, everyone is just in the crunch to start their cases for the day. So then we had the invention of QR codes. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to save everyone time. So I did a QR code and made multiple copies. Everybody had the QR code. I emphasized that we needed to hear from them, because we don't get paid for doing this work. So we definitely need to hear from them. So what happened was I had so few people actually submitting. So everyone would scan the code and be on the run. And out of 12 people, I'm lucky if I got 2 or 3. So I thought, oh my God, I'm just not pushing it enough. I'm a failure. So then I'm also coaching the MICU team to start doing simulation. So I finally got them off and running. They're doing their full team simulation in their unit. And I got a note 3 weeks ago from their unit educator that said, did I have any tips for getting people to complete the QR code? Because she had a problem that people weren't completing the QR code. And I cannot tell you the joy that I had when I discovered it was not just me not getting people to complete the QR code. So that's just joy and defeat. And I'm going to go back to clipboards. Thank you.
So, okay, that's really great. So going back to clipboards, I'm curious, has anyone else had that issue, and has anyone actually had success with the QR codes?
I had this oh, go ahead, Stephanie. I was going to say I had this similar thing happen with handing out the feedback for after surveys, and same thing, people will scan it and then I say, okay, go ahead and fill it out, and then they'll walk away and they won't submit it, or they just don't finish or complete it and they move on to something else so quickly. So doing it at the end is very tricky. So I've had very similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
I've had both success and non-successful measures with the QR codes early on in a process or done the right annual competencies. We tried to use it as a survey to get people to interact and give us information, and we got almost nothing. But when we went in person and we did the same activity, everyone participated. They wanted to be heard. There was something about that, hearing their voice in person, that really mattered to them. And then on the flip side, once we established that, once they knew their voice was heard, now we use the QR code at the end of every in-service, and we get phenomenal results. So I think we were building rapport with groups of people that we would see consistently, and until they trusted us, they weren't going to give us anything. And we had to do that in person.
So I think that's a key point, Stephanie. I love it. I think one of the principles that you're talking about is that people are able to see the so what. Like, okay, what's all this? I'm providing this feedback. Is it actually going to make a difference? Is it going to be meaningful? And I think when people start seeing that it is meaningful, and I think what I heard you say is that it was more of a live demonstration, like you did it while they were there and you were providing that feedback immediately. Sounds like. So they knew that you were doing something with that information. I think the where it does drop off is if people think it just goes into some black hole and then nothing is done with it. If you are responding to it and then people see that, wow, changes are happening, I think they'll be eager to use it, whatever the methodology is. And it may not be the QR code itself, it may be other things. That's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for kicking us off, Teresa.
Sure.
That was great, and you demonstrated vulnerability and started off with something that failed. I love it.
Okay.
So good, so good. We did have a session on the art of failing that actually Joy helped lead at one of these sessions a few times ago. If you want to check out that recording, go to the SMCI site, smci.stanford.edu. and look up teamwork advice. SMC, SCIP. Too many things, too many acronyms. Look up this group and you'll see all of our recordings, and there's a good one on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, who wants to go next?
I'll talk about some books I read because I love to read. I get really stuck into things that are not work related, even though I should be I have like 5 books that are work related I'm not reading. And I read 2 that are historical nonfiction. And one is called Black Angels, and it's about the Black women nurses in America who were very instrumental during the tuberculosis crisis in the I guess it would have been between the teens and 40s, and how they established themselves, or the medical community accepted them, and because their resiliency and ability to work during that time. And then the other one is In Search of Brighter Suns, I think that's what it's called. And it's being a part of the African diaspora from Louisiana. It follows 4 different families and their struggles coming out of the South during the Great Migration, either north or west, and how they all went different paths. And it really mirrored my family in ways that I didn't even understand, things that we have, that it gave stories and historical reference that I never even understood. A cute one is I have a lot of nicknames in our family. We have a Bunny, a Butch, a Suga. My current nickname is Jojo. And I didn't understand why there were so many little nicknames in the diaspora of Black people in America. And it just gave some really cute anecdotal stories as well as very serious ones, but it helped me understand my own culture. And they're both excellent books. I did not like how long one of them was. It was a really long book, but I recommend them both.
Oh, interesting. I love the historical fiction. I'm reading one right now called With This Pledge. It's about the Civil War, and specifically about when the South was about to lose, there was a battle in Franklin, Tennessee, and there was a house, actually a plantation that had been taken over as almost like a war hospital, and they were treating the injured from at that plantation. And actually, apparently nowadays you can still go back to that house, and they've preserved it, and they still have they didn't touch it, so there's still, I mean, from what I've heard, blood stains on the floors and the walls and stuff from that time. But the heroine in the story is what they call it, governess. She was the teacher of the kids, and she became the nurse to all these soldiers, and it's really interesting. So I love that stuff. I'm also listening to I like listening to books. There's Liz Wiseman's one of our favorite instructors here. She teaches as part of our ACES course. She's come to our Lean conference before. She's a world-renowned author. There's a book she has called Impact Players that I'm listening to right now. It's really good. If you've heard the book or read the book Multipliers, it takes and builds upon that concept of like the concept of individuals who, like on team sports, if the coach wants at the end of a game someone to really make the difference, they'll put in this key player. That's the kind of concept, is like, how do we be that person at work? How do we step into those roles and be willing to jump in wherever's needed, no matter what? And that's the kind of concept, and really, really quite good. Great, thanks for sharing that, Stephanie. And the nickname thing is cool. I love it. We have nicknames for our kids too. Our whole family, we have nicknames for. And when we've been doing bowling this summer, and when we do the bowling, we put them up on instead of our real names. It's kind of fun. All right, who's next?
I would like to share a book I really liked recently. I also like to listen to books, so this is both. You can buy or listen Audible. It's by our own Stanford neurosurgeon, James Doty. Some of you may have heard. It's called Into the Magic Shop. It's a very quick, easy read. It's about his own personal quest. He was coming from a broken family, really desperate, and he stumbled into this small magic shop in his hometown, Lancaster, California, where he described as just desert. There's nothing but this magic shop. One day he went in and he met a lady who actually found him really thirsty for self-help. And so she taught him about this technique to concentrate and to train his brain. So because of that, he was able to go to college, graduate from high school, go to college, and go to med school and become a neurosurgeon. And now he is the founder of Stanford Center for Compassion and Altruism, Research and Education. He also invited Dalai Lama, and he's very famous now. But his own story is very, compelling and intriguing. What I learned actually is really, the story is great, but I think in the end, he actually went back to that shop and he tried to look for this lady who really impacted his life. And he want to ask that lady why, she chose to teach him. And the lady said, I was actually waiting for my grandson, but when you walked in, I knew you were ready. So for me, it was a moment of, saying that it doesn't matter what kind of method or technique, it is really waiting for that someone who's ready to accept. It doesn't matter if it's a QR code or clipboard. You have to really look and assess that situation and to fit that into the improvement or whatever project you want to do. So just want to share that.
Ling, who was the author of that?
James Doty, D-O-T-Y, Dr. Doty.
Okay.
He's part of the Stanford community, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I'm capturing these book recommendations. Can you put in the chat the ones that you mentioned too? I didn't catch them. And by the way, I'm putting these into our onto the link that I shared in the chat. It's a mural page. So I'm going to put them on there and you'll have access to all these. Great.
I have another book by a Stanford doc, Fragmented, by Ilana Yurkovich. It was so enlightening. So she went through residency at Stanford, and then she's currently in either internal family medicine, but she was an oncologist. And so she's living in the world like halfway, like where you've brought oncology patients back into primary care. And so she supports those patients. And the insights she gives with examples from across Stanford are just fascinating to understand what's wrong with our health system, not ours, but across the country, our health system, and like why things aren't working and what kinds of things we can be doing better to improve. And it's read by her if you get the Audible version.
I love it when it's read by the author. The one I mentioned, Impact Players, is read by Liz. That's fun. Well,
And Lisa put multipliers in the chat, so put that in your page too.
okay.
If nobody else, so I did think a little bit about an improvement tool or methodology that I tried. A number of years ago, we were within the improvement team that I was in at the time. We like focus on coaching. How do you coach? Like use and make sure that you are always asking questions and not telling people what to do. And so just trying to practice humble inquiry. And so I was, well, one, trying to never say, here's what it, like, I try not to lead, but if you have something that you want to say and then trying to say it is quite, it just sounds it ends up being incredibly rude and presumptuous. when you have people being like, I know you're trying to say something, just say it. Like, don't try to put words in my mouth. And like sometimes going the other way around where the trying to see something that somebody's doing and just going in to fix things and just seeing all of a sudden realizing that like shoulders drooping and like they completely stop engaging. You're like, oh, I was telling you weren't asking for that. Let me start over. What help would you like from me? And so just got a lot of practice on figuring out what was needed, whether it is telling or whether it's like, no, just what do they need from me?
I had a similar situation like that, where it wasn't necessarily telling, but it was one of those moments where I was working with a colleague of mine, and we had all these like really influential leaders, like really high level leaders of the organization I was at, all in a room together to do this it was a really critical project that they wanted us to work on. And we thought we had a brilliant approach. I mean, just brilliant. It was like, this is going to be good. And we started, and an hour in, we look at each other, and I'm like, I looked at the other person and I said, yep, this isn't working. I said, I've tried everything. And I joked that I was just going to walk out because it was so bad. It was not, everything we tried just failed miserably. And it was, so we basically said, all right, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Because it was one of those things that you're trying all this stuff and it's just falling flat. And people were arguing with each other, and like, oh my gosh. And so we regrouped, we talked to some people, and we took a totally different approach. And sometimes that happens. It's just crazy. And at those moments, you just want to crawl under a rock and be like, I don't want to come out. I don't know if anyone's had that kind of situation happen, but that's hard.
Well, and it's interesting, Ryan, because I think any of us who have done PI work, we've all had our projects where they have just fallen flat on their face, and I've had it a couple times. But for Right, I'm actually reading The Right Kind of Wrong, The Science of Failing by Amy Edmondson.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Yep.
talking about possibly incorporating this in our Right project, because, you know, that is the hardest thing, is allowing yourself to fail. And when we do PDSAs, we're doing it, and yes, they may not work. And that I've had that happen more than once. And it's like, okay, we have to reset. Let's look at what went well, what didn't go well, and then let's switch it up. And so with that one, I think it is, it's really important for people. So it's kind of the book I'm reading, and also my area methodology that I have struggled with at times, and it is the PDSA, and giving people permission to actually fail, because that's a hard one. And when you're dealing with a wide swath of people, whether it's doctors, nurses, or technicians, it's hard for them to fail. And so that's why we're doing this book and looking at it.
Judy, have you listened to the recording we had from a few months ago?
No, I have not. No.
You should check it out, because we discussed that book specific. Well, the book, and really a talk that Amy did here at Stanford that was related to that book. So I think you'd like it.
Okay.
I think you'd like it.
I'll look for it. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Has anyone read a really good book on coaching or mentoring in particular that you'd recommend?
So when I was thinking about these books, I went through my bookshelf, and I thought this one is a really fun little, you can see how little it is, book. One small step can change your life. Whether it counts as coaching, mentoring, it's by a psychologist, I think, and he and how he started coaching his patients to be able to get through things that they were having a hard time getting through. And it's kata in more clinical terms, but it really, really cute. My favorite line is, "Don't wake the amygdala." So you're like, what you're trying to do is keep yourself as keep things as tiny and easy as possible, because as soon as your amygdala wakes up, it just like freaks out, and all of a sudden you can't do anything. And so if you do things in the tiniest little steps, then you don't wake the amygdala. It says, shh, don't wake the amygdala.
I love it. So who's the author, Joy?
Robert Maurer, Maurer. one small step can change your life, the Kaizen way.
Oh, that's really great. Any more failures or items that you're particularly good at, things, methods that you're really good, that you, things that you used or did that went really well? Anyone have any of those? And I'm going to take maybe one more of these.
One thought on QR codes. In a training that I did a couple months ago, we have a QR code at the end, and it was an in-person, and so people did actually take the time to do it, but then added one at the very beginning. And so had them, we gave homework ahead of time. So so at the very beginning, had them say what they learned from their homework and I guess what their learnings were from their homework. And so then took that while my partner was running his piece. I went and threw all of their answers into our the Stanford Chat AI.
Secure GPT.
And the
Yeah.
Secure GPT, and then came up with like four themes. And then 3 slides later, we said, and here is what you all said. Does this resonate? And then we were able to have a conversation based on what they had said. That worked really well.
Really great. So good. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, well, it is now 11:50. I want to give you some time to transition if you'd like. I've put the link. I'll go ahead and I'll put the link again back in the chat, because what I would like for you to do is, just like we just talked about, it's not a QR code, but it is a link. If you click on the link, go to the very bottom. There's 2 benefits of this link. You can add book recommendations. You can see the book recommendations that we have. But at the bottom, we have, I'll actually share my screen so you can see it. We do this every time we want your feedback. So at the very bottom, we have this area that says, I like, I wish, I wonder. And the idea is that we would like to hear your feedback on what you liked about today, what you wish we may have done or what we might have discussed. And then what I wonder is potentially what I'd like to learn in the future, concepts that you'd like to know more about, or like, what if we could do this? What if we could have an in-person one of these on a river in Missouri? It doesn't have to be all that grounded in reality. It can be all kinds of stuff. So we'd love your feedback. If you would just go in and to add one, you just double click and it opens up a little sticky note and you just start typing. Something like that, and just click off of it, and there it is. So if you wouldn't mind, spend a few minutes to do that. And with that, I'll go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording and wish you all well. Hope you all have a great holiday weekend and great summer plans. And please take pictures, because maybe at the future meeting we can share some.